All right. Good afternoon again. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All righty. Um, I have, and as soon as this thing loads, I have a warm-up question for you to do. We're going to do aquatic biomes today, and I have a question, and I think it's on your homepage. So let me share so make sure that we're all looking at the same thing. And it's just a thought question. So this is meant for you to answer in the next 5 minutes, not a whole class assignment. So in the time it takes for everybody to get logged in, I think most people are here, but everybody isn't. All right, so it is on your homepage. I thought it was in the module, but it's not. So go to your let me do this from as a student. It should be an assignment on your to-do list. All right, so that's there. Let's see where it is. I thought I sent it to the module, but I'm not sure that it went there. But for sure, it is called the Aquatic Ecosystem Warm-Up. So look for that. That's on your to-do list. And I just want you to take, like I said, no more than 5 minutes. You got to do two things. Think of some place, if somebody asked you where you wanted to go on vacation, where would it be? But it needs to be near a body of water. Now, bodies of waters can be, doesn't have to be the ocean, it can be a lake, river, stream, that sort of thing. So you have to say the location and name the closest body of water to where you want to go. All right, so take the next 5 minutes to do that. Let me know if you cannot find this. Again, I'm looking at this from your to-do list. Let me see if it actually went to the module like I sent it. But it's definitely on your to-do list. And there it is. So it is in the module. Okay, so it is in the module right after terrestrial biomes before aquatic biomes. So it's in two places, on your to-do list and in the module. 5 minutes, 5 minutes. And then we're going to move on. Somebody's missing.
From idea to submission, empower students to do their best work with Grammarly's comprehensive AI writing assistance. What if you jumpstart ideas for any assignment?
What am I listening to?
What if they could get real-time feedback? Prepare students with responsible AI writing download Grammarly for free today. Hey everybody, it's Mr.
Okay, that's not what I need. Okay. Also, what we're going to do tomorrow is do a gallery walk of your presentation. I'm still receiving some, but hopefully, if you still have a project outstanding, that you'll have it done by today, because I want to share them tomorrow on our short day, that we do a gallery walk of everybody's presentation. So again, some people have just submitted it, so I'll get those graded as soon as possible. Um, but if you haven't submitted it yet, please make sure it's in by today. Right, and don't forget to name the closest body of water. And again, it doesn't have to be the ocean. Remember, if you're on the Gulf side, never name the Gulf, don't name the ocean. Uh, Missing somebody, but I can't see who that is. I know it isn't. Okay. All right, we got everybody. All right, good afternoon, dear. There is a to-do assignment, like 2 minutes. If you find it on your to-do page, think of where you would like to go on vacation. It could be someplace you've been and you want to go back. Um, and what body of water? So we're doing this because we're going to do aquatic biomes today. Okay. We're gonna, okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Alrighty. Okay, so I'm going to take just a moment and see what you've written. Let me get this, give everybody mark present. I like it when everybody's here. That's easy to do attendance. Let's see if it would go. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick look. In the meantime, so if you finish that, look at the unit on aquatic biomes. And actually, I want to go back and touch on terrestrial before we go forward. So take take a look at that too. But look at the module. If you're already done answering your question, you've submitted it, and everybody's here. So this is a today question, not a tomorrow question. Okay. Ooh, y'all have interesting answers. Somebody wants to go to Japan, and I don't know. I think I left it so that you all could look at other people's responses. So we have a couple of people who want to go to Japan. Japan, Pacific Ocean. Okay. And the important part was to include the body of water. So I think some of you looked it up. Okay. Which is, that's interesting. And do you pronounce that Cebu, Arches in the Philippines? Cebu? Sicily. Mary Pacific. All right, Emily, you have to tell me what body of water that is. I know it's a beach, but what body of water is it closest to? Oh, I see. Okay, you had it in a second. Gotcha. Not a problem. Gotcha, gotcha. Korea. All right. Quite a variety of places that you all have. All right. So like I said, that was just a thought question to get everybody thinking about water, places that are near bodies of water. So we are going to, um, Akia, were you able to find the assignment? Yes. Okay. All right. So we are going to first look at, um, I did want to go back before to make sure we wrap up terrestrial biomes first before we go on to aquatic. And I want to look at the map and make sure that you know how to use this map. Okay. And it's going to share in a minute, I think. I don't know. The computer is doing what it wants to do. All right, there we go. We are sharing. All right, so everybody, look at terrestrial biomes first. And if you haven't had a moment to just look at all the little doodads on in this picture, please take the time to just click on these things. So the lithosphere is what you actually call the upper layer of the earth. I'm not sure if you've not had earth science, or maybe in middle school you did the layers of the earth. So the top layer is the crust. And when we talk about the different spheres, we're talking about biosphere and hydrosphere. The lithosphere is considered the land part. And there we have the hydrosphere, come on, click, the atmosphere, click, there we go. And the biosphere, so that's where the living things. So you have the solid land, you have the place where things are living, you have the air, and you have the water. So those are all the spheres. And then we're looking at our biome. So this, and you do need to know how to read this chart. All right, so on the left side, you have the annual precipitation. When we talk about biomes, we describe it by annual precipitation and average climate. So on the left side, you've got precipitation, and on the bottom, you've got annual temperature. Okay, so you should be able to say, for example, if the question tells you that they have an average, the location X has an annual temperature of 10 degrees Celsius and an average precipitation of 200 centimeters per this is 200 centimeters per meter. You're supposed to be able to stop down here at the bottom where the 10 is. So I said 10 degrees, and then run your finger all the way up till you get to 200. And that's going to sit right up here on the chart at the tip of temperate rainforest. All right, so you should be able to say that location X is probably located in a temperate rainforest based on the clues that it gave you. Say that it told you that it was 10 degrees Celsius and it had 50 centimeters. So we start with our 10 again, and then come over and look for about 50. So run your cursor up to about 50, and we're kind of, I want to say, in the woodland shrubland area. So the amount of precipitation matters. So temperature is not as big a factor as precipitation. You can have the same temperature, like you have the same temperature in runs with the grassland. It's a cold desert. You got a seasonal forest. All of them run in the 10-degree area, but the amount of precipitation each one gets is different. So this is a graph that you might see on a test. I also want to show you how to do a climatograph later on, but you do have to know how to read this. Okay. Any questions about that one? Everybody understand? So again, they would give you location X is located in an area that has so much, when they talk about biomes, they give you precipitation and temperature and expect you to be able to use a graph like this in order to guesstimate what type of biome it is probably located in. All right. Again, always look at the essential knowledge. So in general, a biome contains the characteristics of plants and animals as a result that as they are adapted to that climate. So you're going to have different animals, plants and animals in a region because they have different adaptations. So somebody who's adapted for tundra is not adapted for the rainforest. So you will not find those same plants and animals in both locations. Even looking at this graph, the ones that are in temperate grassland are not going to really be adapted to living in the temperate rainforest. Okay, so there's going to be different adaptations. Those in the boreal forest are not going to survive well, even though they have the same precipitation. They're not going to survive the same way those in a tropical forest will. Okay, so you're going to have different species of organisms, plants and animals in different biomes, depending on the climate and precipitation. And that will change the global distribution of everything. All right, the AP tip is to be familiar with that chart, basically know all your biomes and be able to read that chart, to know the characteristics of each. So with that, knowing the characteristics of each, I'm going to, the other class had a cheat sheet. You don't have one on here, but I'm going to give you a cheat sheet that you can look at that has all the biomes and their descriptions. So I'll send that to you It's not listed on here. All right, so we're going to do aquatic biomes today. We're going to watch Mr. Smead's. I will give you a chance to look this page over. Okay, this is everybody's answer. So it's there if you want to see where everybody wants to go, because that's now in the module. All right, so this is where we want to be today. We want to be in aquatic biomes. So we're in 1.3. So let's see what Mr. Sneed will let you read that and read the AP Classroom. And please don't reset. Yep, it's going back to the commercial because I had it sitting too long. Maybe.
You're invited to Kohl's Friends and Family Sale. Save 20% on more of your faves, including go-to.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. Smeads, and today I'll be covering topic 1.3, which is aquatic biomes. So today we'll focus on factors that determine where aquatic biomes are found, how the species that live in them are adapted to live there, and the overall characteristics of each aquatic biome. Our objective for the day is to be able to describe the global distribution and environmental aspects of aquatic biomes. We'll also look at different freshwater biomes and how they're an important source of drinking water. We'll also look at different marine biomes, which means ocean-based biomes, and we'll look at how they are an important supply of oxygen globally and an important sink for carbon dioxide globally. And then finally, we'll practice explaining an environmental concept and process at the end of today's video. So first, we'll cover 4 characteristics of aquatic biomes. Salinity refers to how much salt is found in a body of water, and it determines which species can survive in this body of water and whether or not it's suitable for drinking water. Then we have depth.
Okay, pause
Depth is going to influence.
This is listed in your video list. So if you can take notes if you want to, or you can just go back and watch it again slowly. You also have our vocabulary words in Canvas. So take notes if you wish, but know that you already have this information written down somewhere.
How much sunlight can penetrate the surface of the water, so how much sunlight can reach the plants below the surface for photosynthesis. So flow is the movement of water, and that's going to determine which plants can survive in that body of water. It's also going to determine how much dissolved oxygen will be found in the water, because rivers and streams and rapidly moving bodies allow for better mixing of air and water, which leads to more dissolved oxygen in the water. And then finally, we have temperature. This is very important because the warmer a body of water gets, the less dissolved oxygen it can hold, and therefore the less aquatic life it can generally support. And that's because organisms in the water, especially animals, are going to require a lot of oxygen from that water, so it needs to have dissolved oxygen in order to support those animals. So rivers are generally going to have high dissolved oxygen, and that's because the movement of the water facilitates the mixing of air and water, which leads to oxygen dissolving into the water. We're also going to see high levels of nutrients found in the sediments that are carried along the bottom of rivers. Lakes, on the other hand, are standing bodies of fresh water. And this is really important that they're fresh because that means they are a source of drinking water around the world. Next, we have the different zones of a body of water. And so the littoral zone is this shallow water around the edge of the lake or the pond, and it's going to have what we call emergent plants. So these are things like reeds and cattails, where the roots of the plant are embedded in the bottom of the body of water, but then most of the plant extends up out of the water. The limnetic zone is this zone in the middle, and this is the zone where light can reach, and so where photosynthesis is able to take place. Then we have the profundal zone, which is too deep for light to reach, and so there's not going to be any photosynthesis happening in that zone. And then finally, we have the benthic zone, which is kind of like the murky bottom of the body of water, and it's going to feature things like invertebrates that are going to live in that murky bottom and the soil that's down there. It's going to be very nutrient rich because of all the sediments there containing organic materials. Freshwater wetlands are areas where the soil is submerged or saturated with water for at least part of the year, but it's still shallow enough for what we call emergent vegetation. Remember, that's plants that have their roots in the soil, but then extend up and out of the surface of the water. Another key distinguishing factor is that the plants that live in wetlands have to be adapted to live with their roots submerged in water. Most plants will die if the roots are totally submerged in water, and that's because they won't get enough oxygen. They'll essentially suffocate. But plants like cattails or lily pads or reeds all have adaptations that allow them to survive in submerged soils. That is the key distinguishing factor of a wetland. They're very important because they have a whole host of benefits. One of them is that they store excess water during storms, which is going to reduce the damage from flooding. Wetlands also recharge groundwater by absorbing rainfall into the soil, and so that's going to refill aquifers and other underground sources of water that humans rely on. They're also going to provide a natural filtration, basically. So the roots of the plants are going to trap pollutants that may be in stormwater runoff and prevent those pollutants from getting down into the groundwater beneath. And then finally, they're just a great habitat for a whole host of plant life because there's so much water and because the sediments here contain so much organic material, which provides nutrients for those plants. So a really, really diverse and productive biome. Here we have three examples of different types of freshwater wetlands, and we'll talk about how plants in each habitat are uniquely suited to those conditions. So we have a swamp here that's going to feature cypress trees, which are a type of coniferous or pine tree that are uniquely adapted to survive living in submerged soils. Then we have marshes. They're also going to have reeds and cattails, which, like the cypress tree, are uniquely adapted to survive with their roots totally submerged in water. And then finally, we have a bog, and a bog is characterized by extremely acidic soil. And so we have trees like the spruce tree and a species of moss called sphagnum moss that are uniquely adapted to survive in these very acidic soils. So we can see in each type of wetland here, the plant species that are found there are uniquely adapted to survive in those conditions. So far, we've just talked about freshwater biomes, and upcoming we'll talk about marine or ocean biomes, but we have to first cover estuaries, which are sort of an in-between between fresh and saltwater biomes. So they are a mix of fresh and saltwater because they're where rivers empty out into the sea. And so they're going to be very productive biomes, and that's because there's going to be really high levels of nutrients contained in the sediments that are deposited in estuaries by the river. So the river carries all of these organic sediments, and then it deposits them in the estuary when it opens out into the ocean. So that's going to make the floodplains of rivers, the areas where rivers flood up onto the land surrounding them, or deltas where rivers open out into the ocean. It's going to make them have really fertile, really productive soil. So one type of estuary is a salt marsh. These are estuary habitats found along the coast of temperate climates, and they're going to be really important breeding grounds for a ton of different fish and shellfish species. So they'll swim into the salt marsh, lay their eggs, which will hatch, and then they'll swim back out to the ocean and live the rest of their life. Really, really important to supporting a bunch of different marine organisms. Here's a picture of it here, so you can see it's kind of the meandering opening of this river gradually out into the ocean. Then we have mangroves. Mangroves are a really unique habitat. They're estuaries that are found only in tropical climates, so it's got to be a lot warmer, rainier. And the mangrove swamps are characterized by mangrove trees. These are really neat trees that have these super long, stilted roots. And so the mangroves, you can see here, basically sit up perched kind of on these roots. And the roots are really key to the habitat. They're going to stabilize the shoreline, so they're going to anchor the soil in place, protect it from storm surges or really high winds. They can absorb a lot of water when there's excess water from rainfall, which will prevent flooding. And then finally, they're going to also provide a super important habitat for a bunch of different fish species that are going to basically swim among these roots, find protection from predators, find food to eat. And so they're a really vital estuary habitat.
Another commercial.
Been an email. You should bring that up in the next meeting.
Next, we have the coral reef. So the coral reef is an ecosystem found in warm, shallow waters beyond the shoreline. Really important to understand that it is one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth, and it is the most biodiverse ecosystem found in marine biomes. It's going to feature a mutualistic relationship between coral, which is an animal, and algae, which is a plant. So coral take in carbon dioxide out of the ocean, and they're going to create a calcium carbonate shell, which we refer to as the reef. It's their exoskeleton. This is going to provide a home to the algae. So the algae will actually live in the coral reef, but then what they'll do is they'll take in some of the carbon dioxide that the coral give off through respiration, and they'll use it for photosynthesis to make sugars. These sugars then fuel the coral and provide them with an energy source. Really important to remember that this is a mutualistic relationship, meaning that neither organism could survive without the other. But when they live together in this mutualistic way, they're able to live in an area that neither of them would be able to survive in without the help of the other. Next, we have the intertidal zone. Intertidal zones are basically a narrow band of coastline between low and high tide. So when the tide moves out each afternoon, it's going to leave a lot of this area exposed to sunlight. There's also going to be a lot of crashing waves, which requires the species that live in the intertidal zone to be able to basically hang on to the rocks there and anchor themselves. So we'll see that species like barnacles, sea stars, and crabs are all going to have adaptations that allow them to attach themselves to the rock and resist being pulled out when the tide goes out. Another adaptation that they need to have is a tough outer shell or tough skin that prevents them from being dried out by that harsh sunlight that they're going to be exposed to at low tide. This prevents desiccation, which is basically the drying out of the organism. What we'll see here when we look at this diagram is that different organisms are uniquely adapted to live at different levels of the intertidal zone. So for example, we have the spiral rack, which is a type of seaweed. It's adapted to live at the high tide zone because it can actually kind of curl up on itself and secrete a mucus, which acts as kind of a moisturizing substance that prevents it from drying out during low tide. So big important takeaway from the intertidal zone is that the organisms have to be uniquely adapted to live at the different areas found in the intertidal zone. And finally, we'll end with the open ocean. So the open ocean, we should know, is a very low productivity biome per unit of area. So per kilometer of the ocean, it's much less productive than a kilometer of the tropical rainforest. This is because only algae and phytoplankton can survive in much of the ocean. It's just too deep for most plants to survive. So although it has very low productivity per unit of area, it's such a large biome and it covers so much of the earth that all of the algae and phytoplankton that live in the ocean produce a huge portion of the oxygen that we need on Earth in order to survive. It's also going to be an important sink for carbon dioxide, meaning that these organisms are going to absorb a lot of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and that's going to mitigate and reduce the impacts of global warming because it takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. We have a couple zones we should know in the ocean. We have the photic zone, which is the area that sunlight can reach. So that's the area where we will see photosynthesis occurring. Then we have the aphotic or the abyssal zone. This is the zone that is too deep for sunlight to reach, and so there's no photosynthesis that's going to be occurring here. Really important, we should know that the organisms that live in the abyssal or the aphotic zone are going to need adaptations to survive there. So many of them have an adaptation called bioluminescence, which allows them to glow, giving themselves a source of light so they can see and navigate in this dark ecosystem. And also they're going to need to be adapted to sustain extremely high pressures due to all of the water that's above them. So big theme from all of the aquatic biomes we should know is that the organisms that live in them need to be uniquely adapted to survive the conditions found in those biomes. Our practice FRQ for topic 1.3 today will involve concept explanation. So I want you to identify an organism that's found in an aquatic biome and explain how that organism is uniquely adapted to live in that specific biome.
So up to now, you haven't done FRQs. On Friday, I'm going to take FRQ 2 and 3, and I'll put them in your assignment folder. So that's something for you to look at that time. So, but again, the this video is in your playlist. So what I want you to do is, okay, I've got so many tabs open, I don't know where I am. I want you to come back to Canvas, not that one. Same thing. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to close that. All right, so come back here, take a look at that. I have also assigned the questions in the AP. He spoke of the different zones. So it's important that you are familiar with these pictures. So study them, know the different zone, know what lives in what zone and what does not. And a lot of like think of photosynthesis or light or photo. You need light in this area for things to reproduce. So that's where photosynthesis will take place. And anytime you put an A in front of something, it's the opposite. Like we have biotic and abiotic. So you have a photic zone, and that's too dark down there. There's no photosynthesis going on there because light does not penetrate that area. So you need to know what these zones are. The littoral zone is close to the shore, so it gets light, but you also have plants growing there. So you click on the tabs, it will take you through all of the different areas. Again, the thing to remember with rivers and ponds is they're moving. Okay, so because they're moving, they collect oxygen. So he mentioned dissolved oxygen. That's extremely important. You don't have the same kind of life in a lake because you don't have the same amount of dissolved oxygen. So we tend to think about oxygen being in the atmosphere and something that we breathe with our lungs, but remember that plants and animals that live in the water also have structures that allow them to take dissolved oxygen out of the water so that they can carry on respiration as well. So click on those tabs, give those a look. That's just a review of what he just said. The other thing that you need to remember that there's two distinct places, freshwater, and remember that there's very, 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 very like 2% of all the water on the planet is freshwater. Everything else is salt water. So we have much more salt water than we have freshwater. You have different zones in our oceans. We have mountain ridges in the ocean. So know those zones as well. Marine biomes he spoke of. And if you click on the arrow, it will give you the names of all of the marine biomes. Okay. Mangrove, somebody mentioned that they like Tybee Island. That's over here. They have, it's off the coast of Georgia. Later on, we'll talk about them being barrier islands. But they have mangrove swamps, and these are important because especially with what's going on this week, what somebody tell me what's happening this week that having a mangrove swamp would be important. Why would that be important? See how many of y'all listen to the news. What's going on that would be a important thing over here on the Atlantic side. There's a hurricane coming. Yes, indeed. And it's not going to hit land, but it's going to create enough swells that it will disturb the coastline. So having these type of plants rooted on the coastline will keep the shoreline from just dissolving and going away. If you've ever been to a beach after a hurricane, you'll see sometimes you have a whole different shelf where it has taken away most of the beach and it creates a shelf. So this type of plant will keep it from doing something like that. This time of year, and we're going to talk about weathers. Somebody asked why are there so many hurricanes. This time of year, the heat from the atmosphere over the body of water creates this kind of current in the atmosphere. So that's why it's seasonal. Hurricanes are seasonal because it takes heat in order to create this type of tropical weather. Okay. That's a topic we're going to talk about later on when we talk about climate. All right. So, um, take a time to look at that. Also, go to AP Classroom, and you have been assigned. Oh gosh, I have to log out of that too. Anytime you let something sit too long, it logs you out. I try to have them open so that it doesn't take me quite as long to get into them. Now again, the videos have been assigned, but so watch them as extra. But what you do have to do are the three topic questions. So don't do the topic questions until you've gone through the Canvas page, and then do those. So again, those are all multiple choice questions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the FRQ questions from both 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3 that he just mentioned, and I will place them for Friday in the folder. Again, tomorrow, what I want to do is have everybody do a gallery walk of everybody's project. Because like I said, I appreciated the fact that all of you did very, very different organisms. And so I want to share that with everybody else because you pick some interesting organisms to talk about. So we're going to take a time, since tomorrow's the short day, we're going to take the time to share. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions? So you're reading and then answering 1.3 topic questions in the AP classroom. Questions, questions, questions. All right. I'm going to stop talking so you can do that. And
Stop taking meeting notes and let Click AI Note Taker do it for you. It allows you to focus on your meetings, not your notes. It captures.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. Smeeds. Welcome then again in 2004, and we can mechanisms that are found in that biome. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Smeeds. Welcome to. All right, everybody, thanks. The skill of concept explanation. So I want you to identify one characteristic. Hey everybody, it's Mr. Smeeds. Welcome to our first AP Environment. How resource partition could reduce the competition between the
Also, have I recorded scores for the 1.3 from the AP classroom? So if you haven't completed those, please do so. And again, you don't have to tell me what you scored. I take the grade. There's a grade book in the AP classroom that I will just transfer the grade from there to Canvas. So you don't have to tell me what you did, but I will know what you did because it'll be blank on the grade book or you'll have a 3. Okay. Tutorials start this week. So if you need to make an appointment for tutorials, please make sure that you do so. I'm available right after this class on Tuesdays and Fridays. But you do have to make an appointment. Goodness, where'd it go? Thank you. Why did it do that? Oh, okay. I see most of you are hard at work, and that's a good thing. We only have a few minutes more left to class. Are there any questions that you have for me? All right, so again, tomorrow is going to be a gallery walk where we're not doing anything new. We're just going to look at all of the symbiotic relationships that everybody has worked on from last week. And then Friday, and I'm going to make it available to you. The FRQs assignment is going to be available tomorrow. So if you finish your gallery walk and want to get started on the FRQs, it'll be available. It's um, exactly the Friday assignment. So feel free to just look at it, think about it, and then work on it on Friday. So I did do 1, 2, and 3. But like again, it's not available for you to look at right now. I just saved it for tomorrow. So it is available tomorrow, but it is not really tomorrow's assignment. Okay. All right. So if you have no questions for me and you're good where you are, you may log out and I'll see you tomorrow. Mm, I'm sorry, I forgot I was sharing. I couldn't figure out why. I didn't mean to do that. Um, I created this new page and it had timed out early. I didn't understand why. Mm, 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 mm. Why was it sharing?